Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would be in an observing capacity and not inserted as a form into the simulated situation that would transpire. The real awareness, that which we each are, is a part of the isness, everything reality, a true reality that permeates through all consciousness, as it effects into all the myriad expression of simulated body form and environmental feature that it will. As such, everything transpiring in creation, every situation, dimension and life level, is available as the idea that affects them to the real awareness, which has then full creational access, and inserting a form by which awareness can animate through into any creational occurrence is simply a case then of agreeing with the idea that is the desired target situation, dimension, or life level affected. For as we agree to an idea, we experience its corresponding effect, and where the real awareness then places a form by which to animate within a simulated situation is through a necessity that the objective of effecting a change to the situation can be so. In reality, with everything creationally occurring based on agreement, the situations we are inserted into, where we seek to intercede into what has been decided that has affected them, we rather have to encourage the individuals whose agreements are affecting circumstances which we seek to have changed, generally to those of a more life and awareness beneficial variety, to effect alternative situations for themselves, through alternative choices and agreements formulated. Or we can manage the effects of individuals that in actuality isn't a violation of their free will right to create and experience as they will, but rather we are switching the effects they are or will be experiencing to those of a similar nature that makes more sense and are more awareness conducive. As an example, as a dark force karma will be of a nature generally destructive of themselves and others, so we can manage the effects they would have experienced, self-implosion, to that of displacement, with the added bonus that they will not then be destroying others en route to their self-decided implosion, as they will be removed from the ability to impact others adversely. Overall, then, we either are encouraging alternative agreement that those involved in the generating of the simulated situations we find ourselves inserted into will then effect beneficially alternative outcomes, or that we utilize the karma the various participants have accrued, managing it that the impact they are having on the simulated affairs of themselves and others can be nullified. But only should it be our objective to change simulated affairs will we have a form inserted into the experience that the real awareness then animates to carry out whatever is required. And where it comes to sharing the new you sound multi-dimensionally, this too requires simulated creational insertion, for it is the personal selves of the individuals we must approach, that the created self potentially may align intent with the real intent, real awareness of his recognition. For it is so that the created personal selves are bound to the creational simulators that they are effecting and experiencing. But if we are simply to be shown a creational situation, for the comparative is recognizing reference it provides, or as a heads-up of impending situations that may impact physical level-wise at some stage, everything starting on the real side, as everything instantly is its effects and revealed there, then the real awareness as part of the isness, everything as I said, and through all consciousness, so available is every idea for its perusal, and revealed to the personal self, can be whatever makes the most sense for it to be shown from this aside from creation, real awareness view position. In this real side experience then, absent of interjection or insertion into the simulated situation where I was simply observing, I would bear witness to an area of dimensional creation, a planet in some undisclosed location, which would be the home of a species and civilization. The predominant species themselves would be an assortment of bipedal two-legged animal forms, including wolf, feline, and ape-like body types, among various others. For through the design of consciousness, the ideas we have installed as its construct will be affected body types in reflective accordance. In reality, then, there is endless expression potentiality of a form, all of which serves as the vehicle by which real awareness animates, and ultimately utilizes as a tool by which to recognize the ears, from the comparison that the body forms and everything simulated as generated through idea creation, or agreement of ideas as created by others, that is made viewable through the body forms, provides. And this particular assorted mixture of walking animal forms would operate as a relatively cohesive and stable social structure, none of which were at a stage in their creational process where they were preparing to step into the reality of their real awareness true being states, but all the individual body forms that made up their species had the secondary personal self established and indeed totally immersed into its fabricated consciousness unreality. The species as a whole would be in agreement with what presented as their version of religion, and although religion is just another controlling mechanism, the species seemed content enough with the restriction they had decided for themselves. For indeed, as it is agreement which is the engine of simulated effect, for a very ambitious individual to effect a simulator overall situation of a design according to his desires, so necessary is it to have every cog of the effect-generating engine room, the agreement of overall simulator consciousness, to be agreement moulded to his whim. The life-level reptilian gods have achieved this by trawling vast simulator agreement that supports then not only a simulator overall according to their desires, but maintains them as occupying the pinnacle positions of power within it, that through the hierarchies of reptilian and dark force expressions of a form that answer to the life-level reptilian gods, so they have been dispatched throughout multi-dimensional creation over the eons of so-called time to set up the various created surface fronts that, although may have appeal on the surface, are in actuality weighted with unseen idea agreements which enforce and maintain the dark force reptilians' control of the simulator and the subjugation of all species who extend such agreement. Religion will be one such example that underlying the one-dimensional marketed fronts of whatever the religions may present as, in reality, agreement with the idea of religion is agreement to control, as every idea in creation will be in reality. As to cling to and embrace any idea, so we are restricted to its effects. And religion expresses itself in the myriad forms throughout multi-dimensional creation as it does, all as a mechanism for maintaining the dark force's hold of the simulator. The religion that this assorted species of animal-like body forms adhered to would be just another version of what was in reality agreement to the Kalom God ultimately, and their effected species overall experience would be, just as with any species who have extended agreement to the control and power of the dark forces, that of controlled circumstances. As in reality, this species had decided to experience this in relation to the dark force reptilians, the dark forces can't impact the experience of any individual or species absent of agreement that allows this to be so. Where it comes to subjugated species, where agreements in their collective consciousness extended to the dark forces presents as an effected foundation of control through the various means by which this agreement was secured and maintained, such as through embracing of the surface seemingly beneficial ideas such as religion, the extent of control is proportional to the degree by which the enslaved species wake up to the reality of their controlled situation. For the human race, so is it necessary for frequency distorted bombardment, poisoning, robotization, and now depopulation and another potential reset, etc. Other enslaved species in creation, as I have shared, being more oblivious of the control factor in place, and so they are generally simply observed, monitored, and not directly interfered with. For it is agreement the dark forces seek to maintain, and if they have it utterly, consciously and subconsciously, there is no need to escalate the means by which agreement can be perpetuated. This would be a similar situation here with this species, that they were relatively unaware, with no inkling as to their experience being controlled through the agreements as extended via the religion they embraced, and very likely other institutions of their world were creations of the dark forces additionally, and therefore controlling ideas they openly agreed with also. And so unnecessary was it for the dark forces to ramp up their controlling and restricting measures with this particular species. However, there always are those that become more aware than others, always the shining lights among any species, and one particular body form of this species, one of those that resembled a kind of ape, would turn over a few stones, so to say, and would determine that there indeed seemed to be a hidden controlling factor behind the scenes, that the particular religion his species held to was in association with. He would be very outspoken with his contentions. The various body forms the species comprised of had a unified overall language, and he would of course be met with a staunch resistance and antagonism in the face of his claims, becoming embroiled in various altercations, etc. Their religion was of a particular, that buildings were utilized for prayer and such, and certain body types were in the positions of intermediaries between whatever gods their religion promoted, which in actuality would be the Kalorm god, as the being that all religions actually worship, and the general masses, just as it is with the earth and the religions as established there. Once again, a similar dark force reptilian model of control and agreement gleaning being played out across multi-dimensional creation. Additionally, there would be the equivalent of the top priest, who would be marketed as the direct representative of their god, but unlike the popes of the earth, so the species' highest religious priest would never reveal himself to the public, remaining beyond the public eye and scrutiny, as was their established custom. This more aware ape body type was a rarity with the species in regards to his admonishments and accusations, religiously speaking, and it was decided that he would be granted an audience with this top priest. He would be escorted to the very lavishly decorated temple, where the top priest would remain in seclusion. Whatever he received from God by way of information or revelation would be passed on to his most entrusted lesser priests, and they would be tasked with distributing his words to the masses in the buildings of prayer and worship, the equivalent of churches. The ape being would wait patiently, surrounded by various body forms of the species that presented as security, and the ensuring of the top priest's protection, and in attendance also would be the priests on the next rung down in status from the top priest. And now a curtain would be parted, and the head priest would make his presence known, and indeed no individual had ever set eyes upon him or his predecessors, other than those operating in his inner circle of priests and entrusted bodyguards. The species were of an assorted breed of animal types, as I said, wolf, feline, ape-like, etc., but of all the variety there would be no reptilian expression until now. For indeed, shocked was the ape to lay eyes upon a form he, and indeed all of his species, other than the inner entrusted core, had never seen before. The priest now revealing himself was indeed reptilian, of an appearance consistent with their kind, green scaled skin, a tail, a dinosaur-like head with a protruding snout. He would be wearing resplendent robes, and now would question the ape being as to why he would reject the species' religion. Very demonstrably was this verification of their religion being created by reptilian hand, and through the overwhelming acceptance of the religion for who knows how many eras of time, perhaps even from the species' origins, seemingly the reptilians were content in placing some of their agents directly among the species, operating in these priest position capacities, as up until now there had been little risk and danger of doing so, and any concerns or alarm that the top priest's unusual, never before encountered body type may have elicited from the masses was never a situation through the established custom that no citizen could behold the top priest, and very obvious was it as to the formulation of this custom then. Just as a god remains a mystery to the masses of the earth, for to see the god as the reptilian he actually is may be detrimental to the religion's credibility, etc. In regards to this species then, this ape being was an anomaly, and regardless of the smooth and convincing religious rhetoric as spouted by the silver-tongued reptilian priest, the ape would maintain his position of abandoning the religion of the species, and very likely he wouldn't live to see the next day, as surely the risk of him continuing to undermine the religion and the foundation by which their social structure was built couldn't be allowed to propagate. The priest would indeed become enraged at the ape creature's continuous rebuttal of their religion, and would actually strike the ape with his clawed foot, sending him reeling back across the polished floors. The ape would be moved to leave, but would be seized by the reptilian priest's guards. As I said, the ape's fate was sealed. Interestingly, despite the ape's inevitable and discreet execution, very likely a cover-up would be instigated as to the ape creature's disappearance. The ape creature would become as reptilian also. This wouldn't be actually taking place visually for all to see, but more so a feature as added to the experience for my personal self's evaluation. For indeed, as we agree with the distortion, we become more so distorted ourselves in reflection, through where we are creationally positioned and our body types, and in regards to agreement placed with the dark force reptilians, as we then are aligning our consciousness with theirs, a consciousness that affects as reptilian body form wise, so we in turn become reptilian in addition. That although every agreement is its instant effects in reality and can be revealed on the real side, agreement to the reptilians has us as reptilian now in actuality, but through the consciousness design as it effects onto the physical level, these instant effects are somewhat delayed through the inclusion of time and space ideas, and from the physical level perspective, we may only become as reptilian somewhere down the cause to effect processing time phase line, perhaps in future projected lifetimes, say that although this ape being was consciously withdrawing agreement from the reptilian religious idea, he and the species would undoubtedly have had previous lifetimes with the species they were currently, or perhaps altogether different creational species, which, if also enslaved, will very likely have their own versions of religions or other reptilian created ideas by which to trawl agreement through. These lifetimes of agreements then will be subconsciously placed, as each lifetime we have a new body form which has a new experience filing memory vehicle devoid of all we had experienced from lifetimes prior. But regardless of our being unconscious of these agreements from lives previously lived, if we are fully consciousness embracing, as we will be if we have as yet not embarked on our awareness process, we are then in full agreement with its construct entirely, all the ideas it comprises of, and have been accumulating throughout our tenure in the simulator. This species then, including the ape being, would have the vast bulk of the consciousness, the subconscious, as agreement to the darker forces, and despite his conscious redacting of agreement, he still will be maintained as the effects of all ideas of consciousness, the subconscious, that he is oblivious of. And for all those who do retain immersion with the consciousness, a consciousness that overwhelmingly will be of reptilian managed design, regardless of a consciously electing to redact agreement, all will become as reptilian themselves, or as forms that reflect the distorted consciousness they have as by the design of the dark forces, as was the case here, where I was afforded the view of the reptilian body form the ape being would become, along with the entire species, regardless of they consciously withdrawing from the idea that was the reptilian created religion. For indeed, necessary is it to face and release the entirety of the consciousness, including the subconscious, through the process of awareness, that we no longer are the unconscious effects of a reptilian aligned consciousness that will project us into lifetimes in equal reflected distorted measure where we become as reptilian ourselves. Seems the top priest's decision to reveal his form to the ape creature, regardless of the ape likely to be shortly executed, didn't sit well with the tiers of dark force reptilians above his position. For entering the temple now would be a selection of further reptilians dressed in military attire, and they would drag the top priest away. Very likely he would receive a grilling for breaking established protocol in regards to the species they were oppressing. Very likely he would be replaced, and perhaps even eliminated. As I said, the controlling measures are proportional to the slave's acquiescence, and although this was an isolated incident, one solitary ape being questioning authority now removed, was the possibility now of others following in his footsteps. He had, after all, been very outspoken in regards to his claims of the species in actuality being controlled, and very likely, if more of the species began to rattle their chains, a re-evaluation of the structure of their controlled society may have to be considered. As always, it's the case that underlying everything creational is real awareness that has the singular imperative to recognize the ears it is a part of, and eventually this compulsion, this real purpose, will express through all body forms and species, regardless of their agreed to situations.